Hey y'all, it's your girl Sia, and I'm back with another video. Y'all, really quick. So it turns out Trump is back on the ballot for 2024 here in Denver, Colorado. Apparently, there was a decision made that they would not remove him from the ballot unless the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, excuse me, affirms the original decision made by the Colorado Supreme Court, right? And I do feel like this is a bit of backpedaling, right? It is definitely backpedaling. Again, I do feel like that is an infringement, and what they did was an infringement upon our rights as United States citizens. And so, therefore, I always said, and I still stand by it, I don't believe that this is really going to go through. If it does, it is a clear, like, that should be a sign to everyone that we genuinely do not live in the same United States of America that we once did, right? So it would actually be very scary if the United States Supreme Court did not rule against the Donald Trump ruling. But I just got off, you guys, and I was just scrolling YouTube and I saw that that was the case. I'm not surprised. This is very clear, like I said, backpedaling. And it looks like Colorado is almost trying to get it. They're projecting, you know, ahead. So they're making decisions based upon things that have not actually been proven to be true, right? But it's almost like we're going to start this just in case, right? And I don't agree with their decision. I think it's on the people to be able to make that decision. And a part of me feels like whoever voted this in and allowed Trump to be off the ballot is fully aware that it is as citizens, that is our rightful choice, right? Whether we want to vote for Trump or not, it does not give them the right to remove this man from the ballot unless there's a legitimate cause, right? And I think that it's very important that leftists understand that the reason this is so important, it's not about those for Trump and those for Biden. Like, that's not really the argument being had here. If this situation was to go down, right? And let's say, for example, the US Supreme Court decided that they were not in favor of Trump being on the ballot in the state of Colorado. Do you know that that sets a precedent for any term to come? That includes the Democratic terms. So if you've got a president as a left person or a Democratic person that you're really in favor of, let's go back a few years, right? Obama, right? That would mean that the Republicans could conjure up a bunch of, cases and lawsuits or whatever, right? And even though your primary candidate was not proven guilty, they're still able to make decisions that could essentially overthrow the entire election as a result of. So I think we get into this pattern of it's us against them, when really we're all in the same boat when it comes to certain laws, when it comes to certain decisions that we make. And unfortunately, Trump is the face of this, of what they're striving to do here. But it's not really about Trump as much as it is having a fair election, right? So I want to be very clear. We got to be mindful of the things that we ask for, because in this situation, this is a situation where folks, basically, if you harm the party, you harm everybody, right? If you take Trump off the ballot in 22 or 23, excuse me, or wait, 2024. I'm way off, y'all. And my mind is in tax years, so bear with me. But if you're taking Trump off the ballot in 2024, You guys have to understand that that sets a clear precedent for what's to come. And so anytime a party doesn't like someone or a party is against someone, then they're able to utilize these tactics in order to produce a result that is essentially unfair. Me personally, I told you guys, I don't know what the politics were on that decision of him being allowed on the ballot, outside of me thinking that maybe perhaps people know that that's probably not the wisest and not the right decision to make, as it pertains to law itself, as it pertains to the Constitution itself. But I don't know because I wasn't in those rooms, right? And so obviously there were conversations had. And the way in which they've done it is they're waiting on the Supreme Court. So they're going to allow him to be on the ballot unless the Supreme Court says otherwise, right? That tells me that they genuinely know that he should have never, that ruling should have never came about without proper channel, like proper things being taken. That tells me that they're backpedaling. Oh, we're going to do this just in case, right? But that wasn't the intent before. The intent before was, hey, we're removing him. It wasn't a question. But now we're saying, oh, no, we're just going to wait. We're going to wait and see, right? And he's on there instead of removing him, because if the idea was that he was really innocent, or excuse me, guilty, they would have kept him off the ballot. They would have kept going with that, same precedent. So why the sudden change? And I told you guys this before, and I'll say it again. If you guys paid attention to Colorado, that last election that we had, obviously you're dealing with I don't know what they call us, like there's certain, basically, even though it's not all of Colorado, certain cities win like the state vote or something like that. I don't recall what it was, but there's certain counties that make up the overall Democratic Party or the Democratic support here in Colorado. But they're not really, at least on the map, from what I remember, they're not the majority. It doesn't appear that way, right? Obviously, you're dealing with certain counties. There's one county, I think it was like, is it Larimer or Boulder? I can't remember, y'all, because I don't think Boulder is a county. I think it's a city. But Larimer County, certain areas where you had a high population of college students. So that could be kids from all around the world, right? Essentially voting, right? But your families, your people, like, it wasn't a whole, it was a lot more red than what people understood. So, and you guys have to understand something. Everybody I talk to, the people that have money, I've not talked to, unless it's like a wife, like, don't get started. Don't get me started, y'all. But unless it's somebody's wife, right? Usually the breadwinners are very conservative. Okay. And I do believe, I was talking to someone earlier, I do believe it is a class issue. Obviously, I do believe that race plays some parts in that. But I do believe that it is a class issue, right? What we're seeing in some areas. And the more people I notice have money, they understand the principles around money, they are very much more conservative. And that's just how, I don't know, I just notice that. And so I will say this. Colorado, again, I'm going to keep doing research because I'm curious. Sometimes they do put this information out there so people know what's going on. But Colorado is a very weird state in the sense that it's very difficult to find information that you're really, really looking for. And I think that back in the day, unless you're like in the know, in those circles where those conversations are being had. Back in the day, it was much easier to find. It was hard to find information from here, right? Because there's so many things that happen here that people don't realize. But but it was a lot easier than it is today. Okay. Obviously, there was a lot of information that they had shut down. And so there's portions of things that I can't even find anymore. And so I want to do some more research. I want to see if they're going to come out with that conversation and why it was had deeper than the news. But again, if not, my overall perspective on this is they knew they were wrong. They knew that that wasn't realistic. I do feel like, well, again, according to the Constitution, I'm not saying they can't do it, right? The Supreme Court can do essentially whatever they want, irregardless of the laws, right? We see that happening all day long. Not with them, okay, not with them, I'm just saying in general. Right? People are just applying their own meanings to things, and they're making their moves the way they want to make their moves. And they don't really seem to care about the Constitution, the history, the laws. They don't seem to care about that shit. So again, I want people to understand they can make that decision. But I don't see it again. If it's the Supreme Court and everybody's pretty much well balanced, like I don't see that decision being made. And I do believe that their reasoning for keeping Trump on the ballot has everything to do with the fact that they knew that really might not likely go through. But I think it's a fair way, right? I think that's a compromise. I think that's a fair compromise. And I only say that from that standpoint because clearly somebody believes he needs to be off the ballot. Okay. So I'm not gonna, as much as I don't agree with that thought process, that is a thought process being had. Right. So if that's the argument here, and obviously it holds a little bit of weight for it to go to the top, right? I would think that's a fair compromise, right? I don't agree with the entire situation. I feel like that's, he's dealing with that type of he's dealing with these court cases going on, right? He's going to be facing, if he's guilty, he'll face a certain level of consequences that I don't think Colorado needs to really be concerned about, right? And that's just my personal opinion. I don't feel like this is really a Colorado conversation, right? I understand why they're making it a conversation because of the color of our state, but it's irrelevant to us in the grand scheme of things, right? Ultimately, I only see brownie points going towards whoever made this possible, right? And this argument possible. And my heart goes for Trump a little bit, but again, he's got lawyers. He'll be fine, right? But the reality of it is, if I've been on this side of things, so in my mind, it's like I'm sitting here fighting a very pointless argument, right? These are arguments that you're like, really, why am I having to argue this? Right? That's really, I would be like, are we really having to like, but anybody can start a lawsuit for any reason, okay? And as long as it's a lawful lawsuit, and not lawful meaning correct, meaning that it pertains to the actual law, it's okay. So it's those things can be frustrating because he shouldn't have to be going through this. If he's guilty, they're going to find him guilty. And then the repercussions will come from that point. But one state, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's almost Karen-like behavior. Okay. Like, okay, let me be guilty first and then you act. So again, obviously our arguments hold weight in terms of, the Constitution and how elections are supposed to work. I do feel like it was a very dictative it was a very interesting move Colorado made because not everybody was on board. But believe it or not, if you go into the comments in the news section, there are tons of people on board, which is very, very just interesting, okay? Because I'm not getting it. My hate for Trump would never exceed my overall, I would say, position in life. So, but I understand the thought process because I was once there. I just am not there anymore. Right. So I don't know, y'all. It's not a surprise, like I said. Um, okay, they put them back on the ballot. Cool. I mean, okay, cool. Like I just feel like that's what was gonna happen regardless, because it really, that's not really election like behavior. Not here in the United States. So I'm not surprised. But I did want to touch on it briefly just because I saw that they were, well, we're not, whatever they said. But I'm like, why would you have a whole campaign about something, then take it back and retract it? And listen, that right there, in my opinion, everything that they did is very suspect. It just got to make you look at everything like, okay, like if you really had, I just wouldn't be offering that option if I was right. Right. So much so that I made a ruling on something ahead of time. So unless, right, let me be clear, unless the information that initially came out was not correct. But if they went ahead and made this decision after the fact, after the ruling, that screams red flags. Like, that's actually kind of crazy. Because it was a whole campaign about Trump being, taken off the ballot. It was a topic. Now, those who knew better were like, yeah, okay, I want to see how this one works. Because again, I'm just thinking, if I go to the polls and you're telling me I can't vote for the president that I want to, excuse me, the candidate that I want to vote for, how would that really turn out? Like, there's a lot of people that probably would not show up. Like, how would that, like, I don't even know what that looks like in real life. I don't think none of us do. What does that look like on the day that we're going in, like we're supposed to vote, but the person we want to vote for is eligible in other cities around the nation, but not here? Like, I just, y'all, I'm not gonna lie, I would be PO'd. Like, I don't see how that, like, realistically, like, I just don't see how that would actually pan out. Like, I just see chaos. Like, I would not, like, I don't know. And I'm not trying to incite anything, or I just realistically, I know how it made me feel to know that that's what they were trying to do. I could only imagine how some of these other folks out here be feeling if that actually happened. And so you got this case that's going to drag out longer than it needs to be, which is very interesting, right? Because I don't see this happening. Oh, now that I just thought about something. If they drag it out, there's another scenario that could play out, because you got this movie, The Civil War, and everybody's talking about there's going to be a civil war, right? And in my mind, everybody talks about classism, right? And how it might play out, racism, whatever. There's another that I just thought that I want to another scenario could be, because they didn't want to make the decision quickly, right? They're ready for this to go through trial, right? And go through the process and the motions. And that could take forever. Okay. So one or two things could happen for that. I would hate to see, because they did this to us when Trump was running, what, 2024, 2020? I would hate to see something happen to where, because Colorado, and you have to look at that too, because I'm also looking at Kamala Harris. I want y'all to understand, Kamala Harris is a big piece on the playing field, but everybody's attention is on Trump and Biden, right? So Kamala's over here scoring points, not with me, but with some people, more than she's ever have. And our focus is on Biden and Trump. So it would not, I'm just saying, I'm not saying that this would happen, but with the talks of civil war, you had, Obama's, they're funding this movie, Civil War, and it would not, again, surprise me if the Supreme Court came out at very last minute, and made their decision. Like, that would be crazy. And it was not in favor of Trump. That would be some shit. Excuse my language, but that people have to prepare themselves for crazy shit like that, because that's the type of times we're in, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen. It would just, you know, that would cause a civil war. I could see that happening a mile away, simply because Colorado moved prior to the decision being made. They already made their decision. So is there something that we don't know that, I'm just curious. That you got to look at it from all angles. And or, right? Let's say he becomes president again. Well, then wouldn't that give him the power to get rid of all this mess anyway? I don't know. So there's a lot of things to think about, right? And there's a reason why Kamala Harris is scoring points with somebody, right? Because I don't know them people. She's scoring points with some people, right? You got a border crisis that's happening. You got Kamala Harris that's appealing to those people. Okay. So, I just got to ask myself, and the purpose behind the border crisis, that is actually, there's a purpose behind that with these people. So I don't know, y'all. I got a lot of thoughts about everything. I'm going to keep watching, but understand that these are the angles that I'm looking at this from, because I know who I'm dealing with. I know the players involved. We've seen it to happen time and time and time again. If you thought Black Lives Matter, that shit that happened in 2020, that shit was crazy. Like, my mind tells me that we should expect something crazy, if not crazier, right, happening. And I don't know whose favor that's about to be in. I just know I'm here with my popcorn. I'm kicking back and I'm watching, because right now is the time to observe. So my suggestion is, do not get so caught up in Trump and Biden. Just like, it's the same story that's been playing out. It ain't nothing new. Like, there's nothing new under the sun really happening. Maybe details, okay, but it's still the same argument, the same fight, right? But you got a wild card, which is Kamala Harris. And you're looking at Biden, who folks don't even know if he's even there, if he's even functioning, if he's pissing the right people off or the wrong people off. Like, nobody knows these things. We can only speculate. But you've got Kamala Harris making all kinds of friends. I'm just saying. So it would not surprise me either if we just seen a shift in the type of presidency that we have, right? As a result of, who knows? So there's a lot of potentials that could happen. I'm gonna keep my eyes open, but this whole I'm taking him off the ballot and then we're not taking him off the ballot. I don't know if the man was ever taken off the ballot. I don't know if that was ever something that they could really do. Like, okay, so you threw a temper tantrum today, but I don't know how long lasting that could have really been. It does give and scream Karen to me, okay, or kin to me. And I think this is backpedaling just in case, so that they can justify why they did it in the first place. Because if they make this kind of move, and these people know, right? Y'all have to understand, I keep telling you what type of people are here. You're not dealing with people who don't have money. So you have a lot more red in this state than people know, but because of those specific counties, you got college kids. Listen, nothing wrong with college kids, but in their voting decisions here, yes, I got some issues. Okay. But again, when I was a college kid, I got it. I understood. I was the same way, right? And I remember the old stuffy white Republicans telling me too. Like, I remember when they were going around on the light rail, y'all, and they were passing out these cards for the legalization of marijuana. And I was for it. I'm a kid. I'm a teen. I say kid, but I was a teen, a young adult, whatever. And I remember this old lady, she's sitting across from me and she's like, "You're gonna vote for those things." And as a kid, you're looking at her and you're like, "Oh, you're just old, grumpy white lady, racist," right? But the reality of it is she was probably making a real solid point. That if I look back from now today, I'm like, oh, I see what marijuana has done to the state. And it's very baffling to me that you have people here like that come and visit and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I just don't know what the issue is." Like, "Oh, Colorado is just so friendly and the zoo is just like so nice." And the zoo, "Oh, we went to the restaurants and we just had the greatest service." What? That's not how you judge a city. Like I told this lady, there was a time you were able to lock your door, like in my lifetime. Like you remember your grandparents talking and all that, but there was a time, and it may be in some areas of Colorado or the metro area still, you will find that people are able to just leave their doors unlocked and they'll be fine, right? But that's how most of Denver was at one point, not that long ago. And so when you have a high level of crime, a high level of homelessness, because you got to understand, your homeless were hidden, right? The areas where the homeless are at now, the areas that used to help the homeless, they've had to kind of shut all those places down due to the amount of homeless there are here. You didn't see your homeless unless you were out at night, kind of deal, right? They blended in. Now they're all over the fucking place, okay? Along with drugs and all that extra shit that I don't know. California decided they were gonna just allow in their state, right? So it is very different. The crime is a lot higher than it was, but then again, people say back in the 80s the crime was pretty high too. So I don't freaking know, right? I will tell you it was a lot smaller than it is now. Is it a beautiful city? Yes, but in order for you to experience the beauty here, you have to have money. Otherwise, the rest of the people are living is a miserable, is very polar opposite. They're either very poor or and when I say middle class, right? Even your middle class are able to go and experience the beauty of Colorado, but your poor people cannot. So it's a very drastic, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of a drastic thing. I don't know how to explain it. Your poor thing very different than your middle class and or your upper class. Like it's a very different kind of thought process. And the poor are genuinely poor. Like there ain't, so I it's very different here. I don't know what to tell people in that aspect. If you come here, yeah, you're gonna meet friendly people, but I guess it depends on who you talk to, right? Who you know, right? What circles you're in, right? Because ultimately if you're not in the right circles, right, and or do not have the money, your lifestyle is going to look very different. So I don't know that Colorado has necessarily changed for the better, right? I feel like it's grown a lot, right? I feel like things have changed. That's all I can say. Things have really, really changed here. But there's a lot of politics at play. Obviously, you guys know who's been our leadership for the last, I don't know how many years. And so it's interesting. It's just interesting to see. Um, but I'll tell you this, I would not want to live in Colorado if I didn't have money. You know, that's just me personally. Okay. And I still don't really want to live in Colorado because I don't like the politics here. Right. But at some point, I wonder just where things are going to like things. I feel like everywhere you go, you're dealing with the same shit now to some degree. So that's all I got to say, y'all. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments below about this whole ballot situation here in Colorado. Like, do you think like that was a for real thing? Do you guys agree? Do you not agree? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. With that being said, I'm out. Peace.